1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't be shy. It's totally fine if you would like us to do that. Well, this would be in addition. It's going on BSpace no matter what. Okay, I'm just curious. There are some people who prefer, for whatever reason, to actually be able to just go to a copy shop and pick up the reader and not have to deal with printing things out themselves. And if that's the case, that's fine. But I haven't done it yet. Is that something I should do? Okay, I'll do it. Podcast. This class is being podcast. That's why I can't start until 9:40, because I don't start the recording until 9:40. If you go to that website, you will be able to, of course, after the lectures have happened, you will be able to download the audio of each lecture, provided that there aren't any technical glitches, and sometimes there are. But for the most part, you can do it that way. Now, does this mean that you don't need to come to lecture? Straw poll. Yes or no? Yes? No. I would encourage you, if you are sick, if you have a cold, if you have the flu, listen to the lecture on the podcast, please. Don't come out here and add to the vectors. I mean, I've already got kids. I've got plenty of vectors for getting sick already. I imagine most of you already have plenty of vectors. We don't need to multiply them. In my view, that's the single best reason to use the podcast. Of course, you're also welcome to download and listen to them as a review. I believe, I like to think, that you'll get more out of this class if you're actually here, and we can have some interaction, that kind of thing. New this semester, under a pilot program, the same site that provides the podcasts is supposed to be able to provide the slides. I have no idea how they do this. I have no idea if it will work. I have no idea how much trouble it is. And of course, it can't happen until after the lecture, so you can't have them in your hands to take notes on. But when they said, will you agree to let your class be part of this pilot, I said, sure. And I'd be interested to hear from you about how well it works or doesn't work, just so I can tell them if they ask me. But just so you know, that should also be possible, provided there aren't technical problems. Any questions? All right. This is in the syllabus. You don't need to read it right now necessarily. I suppose maybe I should read it out loud. This is just to say you're not allowed to cheat, and if you cheat, we will enforce the rules. And remember, this is mostly an issue when it comes to questions of like plagiarism. And in case you don't know, we can use Google ourselves, and any like 12-word long string that we think might not be yours, we will easily find the source of when we type it into Google. So just again, this is just academic integrity. This stuff is important. Okay? Questions about that? Good. I'm going to run through the syllabus quickly to give you a sense of what we're going to do. We're going to start with a prologue of sorts, territory and global slums. And we're going to think about what territory is, what it means for something to be territory, what it means for some entity or process or people to turn some space into a territory. And the reading from Delaney, chapter 1, will begin to answer those kinds of questions. It will provide a framework within which to think about a great deal of what we cover in the rest of the semester. We're going to look at the atlas. We're going to look at the opening pages of the atlas and talk about maps and how maps are made, what cartography is, what maps can and can't do, what they involve, things like simplification, generalization. As a note, I should emphasize, the atlas, you will encounter the atlas, use the atlas primarily in this class for purposes of map quizzes and actually learning the names of the places of all over the world, right? And it's going to include cities and states and rivers and mountains and deserts and oceans and seas and bays and the whole 9 yards, right? However, we're also going to use the other parts of the atlas, which you may begin to forget about over the course of the semester. And that includes page numbers that will be assigned reading that go over various sort of themes or topics for which maps can be usefully deployed. So I want you to remember to do the reading, and I want you to understand that you're responsible for those parts of the atlas as well. And in addition, you'll notice that there are tables of information, significantly, lots of information in the back of the atlas, all kinds of statistics about the economics and populations and so forth of the different countries of the world, the biggest cities and so on and so forth. And that's information that I'd also like you to remember is there and can be used. We will draw on it from time to time. And you will not typically be expected to memorize any of it, but it's there, and it's a lot of information, and you shouldn't forget that it's there. And then we're going to start talking as a preliminary cut into the state of the world today. We're going to talk about slums, and we're going to start reading Mike Davis's book, Planet of Slums. We're only going to read the first 3 chapters, and then we're going to put that book down and come back to it and finish it at the end of the semester. And the purpose of the first 3 chapters is to throw out there an interesting question. Mike Davis's question is, why is it that all over the world in the last 50 or 60 years, there has been an enormous growth in slums? And we'll talk about what slums are, but for now, it's happened everywhere. It's happened in rich countries, it's happened in poor countries, it's happened in capitalist countries, it's happened in communist socialist countries. It's happened in the north and the south. It's happened everywhere in the last 50 or 60 years. And Mike Davis wants to understand why. And we're going to put that out there because on the one hand, slums are obviously very local, right? They're located in very specific places, one by one in each city around the world. They are parts of cities. They're part of almost every large city in the world. Why should every large city have a slum, a part of itself that is populated by very poor people living in substandard conditions? To gloss it very simply right now. If it's a local thing, city by city by city, how is it that it would have happened everywhere in the world at the same time? How do you explain that kind of thing? What kinds of processes could be said to drive this phenomenon? We're going to put that out there as a sort of first cut. And then the reason we're going to put it down is so that we can then back up and try to come at this question from a broader perspective, not just right here now there are slums, but let's think about the growth of cities. Let's think about processes that have created the conditions in which this slum urbanization has happened. And that's going to require that we go back a long way. So in the next part of the class, we're going to talk about human migrations, domestication, and agriculture. What's domestication? Anybody? Yeah. Livestock. Okay. We're talking about the domestication of plants and animals. The taking of wild animals and turning them into livestock. How did that happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen? What difference did it make? Same thing with plants. What's the difference between a wild perennial grass and wheat, for example? We're going to look at how, when these things happened, how they affected human societies, helped create what we call civilization. We're going to do this for the first half of February, roughly. We're going to read significant amounts from Alfred Crosby's book and some more from the Atlas. We're going to see a couple of movies. The one on the 9th is about slums. The one on the 16th is about grass. Why is that funny? What's funny about grass? You'll find that I'm actually a big fan of grass, and I mean that in a scholarly, rigorous sense. Come on. We're going to watch a movie about grass. It's about the migration of a pastoral tribe from its winter to its summer grazing lands over a mountain range along the Iran-Iraq border. And it was filmed in 1925. Contact and conquest. So first part, back here, here we're talking about roughly the last 10 to 12,000 years of human history, ever since plants and animals were domesticated. Here, we're going to talk about roughly the last 500 years. So we're going to go from a much bigger temporal scale to a smaller one, or maybe an intermediate-sized one, 500 years. We're going to talk about what happened when humans and plants and animals and germs made their way from Eurasia to what's called the New World, even though it's as old as the rest of it, which is to say the Americas, and what happened, how that shook things up. Why is it that people from Eurasia migrated to the New World and, by and large, conquered the New World, the peoples there? And how did that affect civilizations, economies, populations, ecosystems, that kind of thing? We'll have a review session on March 4th and a midterm on March 9th. Then we will scale this temporally down a little further and think about the last, say, 250 years, since the rise of the Industrial Revolution. We'll read Weber and Marx and Orwell and Bernstein and another chapter from Delaney and some more from the Atlas. We'll try to understand what capitalism is, what colonialism is, how they built on the developments of the previous periods, and how they changed those things, and how that reorganized space, connected the economies of the old world and the new world, that kind of thing. We'll watch another movie. This one is about coffee production in Ethiopia. We will ask you to be working on the bibliographies for your papers, and they will be due in sections the week of March 29th, right after spring break. And then we're going to scale things down to the last 50 years, give or take, or the second half of the 20th century, up to the present. And we're going to look at liberation, which is to say the end of colonialism in places like Africa. We're going to think about globalization and neoliberalism, phenomena that have unfolded by most people's accountings in the last, say, 40 years. We're going to finish the Davis book. We're going to read some other readings, and we're going to finish Delaney. By that point, it will be late April. You'll turn in your papers on the 13th of April. We will watch another movie on the 15th, Life and Debt. This one is about Jamaica and agriculture and the World Trade Organization and restructuring, structural adjustment, international finance and lending. On the 27th, we'll watch a movie about China and events in China in the last 21 years since Tiananmen Square. On the 29th of April, we'll watch a movie about the maquiladoras in Mexico along the border with the United States. And on the 12th of May, we'll have a final exam. Part of the reason that class is organized this way is because, well, they've shortened it now. It's not 15 weeks in instruction anymore. It's 14 weeks and then the reading thing right at the end. But my own feeling is that by the time you're like 12 weeks into a 15-week semester, everyone is exhausted. And the idea here is that by the time we get to about week 12, week 13, we're going to be pretty much finished with reading, pretty much finished with assignments as far as papers and that kind of thing, and we're going to watch movies. And we're going to use those movies to think about what we've learned. But that way, we won't get quite so exhausted in our effort to comprehend the entirety of the Earth in one semester, right? It's a lot of work to make sense of the Earth in one semester, and you need to be able to sort of kick back a little bit towards the end to maintain your sanity. Okay, here is an effort to capture the layout of assignments and quizzes over the course of the semester. This is in the syllabus as well. Map quizzes. We are going to give you, a week beforehand, blank maps of different parts of the world. And they're going to, somewhat like the map you filled out here earlier, except that these will have little dots on them. We're also going to give you, a week in advance, lists of names of cities and countries and rivers and mountain ranges and bodies of water and landforms, deserts, that kind of thing. And you'll have a week to figure out which name goes where on the map. The dots obviously are there to signify where cities are located. And then at the beginning of section, in these weeks, as indicated, you're going to come in and you're going to be handed a blank map. And your GSI is going to write 15 names on the board, taken randomly from the list that you were provided. And you're going to have 10 minutes, give or take, to write those names on that map and turn it in as a map quiz. And we're going to do it for most, if not quite all, of the world. And this just becomes part of the course. These are set up in such a way that they don't happen in weeks that you also have to, say, turn in your paper or turn in your bibliography, that kind of thing. So they shouldn't pile up too much. They won't happen in the week of the midterm, that kind of thing. It may sound kind of, rote or banal to have to do this, but in our past experience, in fact, this has been something that most students actually really enjoy. It gives you a good sense of, well, it makes it a whole lot easier to read things like The Economist and The New York Times and so forth and actually know where some of these places are. It's a good sort of first step, baseline information for geography. Are there any questions about that? Okay, I can't remember if I put any slides in here about the, oh, yes, oh boy, we're going to move on here. We got 6 minutes. I'm going to give you a little bit more information about how the class is graded. The map quizzes collectively are 15% of your final grade. Participation in discussion sections is another 15%. The midterm is 20%. The research paper is 20%. The final exam is 30%. Is that clear? I expect you to do all of those parts of the grade. In other words, if you're taking the class pass-fail and you know that you've accumulated 70% of your grade or something because you've done so well, it doesn't mean you can just skip the final exam. Okay? This requirement really only applies to people who are taking the class pass-fail. I think that means that they can sort of skip out on part of it. You have to have some kind of grade for all 5 parts if you're going to pass. You're responsible for all the material in the assigned readings, whether or not they are covered in lecture. Okay, so do the reading. Do the reading before the lecture for which it's assigned, so that we can actually talk about it in lecture. The research papers, we'll talk more about this down the road. The purpose of the research paper is to learn research skills and techniques across the breadth of the UC library system. The purpose is to learn how to do scholarly research as opposed to Google research. Okay? And there is a difference, and we will help you understand that difference and get the skills you need to do this. It might sound really intimidating. Most students find that once you're actually shown how to do it, it's actually not that hard. And it's really pretty fun and interesting. You will have a great deal of leeway to decide for yourself what you want to write your paper about. And that's something you might want to be thinking about as you do the readings and so forth. Does something strike you as interesting? Would you like to do some more looking into it? Because it will be your responsibility to come up with something you want to write a paper about, and we will ask you to start pinning that down before the midterm so that you aren't trying to scramble and do it all at the end. To learn practices of citation and attribution, develop a critical appreciation of how regions have been produced and their effects in the world. Readings will be specified further in lectures. There are no sections this week. Sections begin Monday of next week. Okay? Rules. Turn off your cell phones when you come in. If it rings, I or the GSI or the person to your left will answer it for you and talk to whoever it is that's calling you. Please don't surf the web, do email, text, that kind of thing. No plagiarism and cheating. Please don't wander in late. Help me learn your names. It's impossible for me to learn everybody's names, but please don't be shy about telling me your name. And with any luck, I'll remember, although I'm not terribly good at it. Take all issues to your GSI first. If you have a question or a problem or issue, there are too many of you for it to get all sort of ad hoc. There needs to be a basic protocol and system. And the system is you go to your GSI first and you explain your situation and your issue, and you try to work it out with your GSI. If you do not satisfactorily resolve the issue with your GSI, then feel free to bring it to me. Okay? Enrollment. There are 200 people registered. That's the limit. As of Friday, there were 41 people on the wait list. This room holds 196 according to the website. If you decide not to take this class, please drop it quickly in order that people on the wait list can get in. If you want to take the course, the key thing to do if you're not enrolled yet is to attend a section. I realize you may not be enrolled in a section yet, or you may be enrolled in a section that conflicts with some other class you're taking and you can't get to it. In which case you should find a section you can get to and go to it, and go to GSI and say, I'm actually enrolled in this one, but I need to be in this one. Make sure your GSI gets your name and understands that you wish to be in that section. Every single time I've taught this class in the past, it's sorted itself out, and I haven't had to exercise any crazy authority about who gets to be in and who doesn't. The waitlist has always eventually gone away, but it may take several weeks. If you do not attend section, even though you're enrolled, and we get to the point where it's drop-dead deadline, and there are still people on the wait list, I will sit down with the GSIs and figure out who's enrolled but hasn't been coming to section, and we will drop you in order to make room for people who are coming to sections and want to be in the class. I don't want to have to do it. I've never had to do it before. But if that happens, that's what we'll do. So you have to attend section in order to secure your place in the class, okay? Even if you are already enrolled. Any questions? I think that's it. The readings for Thursday. Pages 5 to 15 in the Atlas, and Chapter 1 of David Delaney's Territory. You can see the readings up here for next week as well if you wish. Thanks very much.